Welcome to Carpool Conversations, where our goal is to equip parents to have meaningful, Christ-centered conversations with their kids. I'm Amy Lowe.
And I am Marissa Rae, and today we will be talking about why families should volunteer together.
Yes, Marissa, the topic on the table today is volunteering, and you wouldn't maybe think that that would necessarily be a podcast for intentional parenting, but if you thought that, you would be wrong because volunteering is one of those things that provides so much bang for your buck. You get so much out of it. There are so many benefits for doing it. And today we have a guest who lives in this world day in and day out. And he just so happens to be my husband. So I'll introduce him today. We love having spouses on the show. Sarah's husband has come on before. Matt is here today. So you know that means that Montana is next, Marissa.
I'll have to get him thinking.
You can be thinking about what he maybe could share. But Matt is the chaplain and volunteer coordinator for the Real Life Center, a ministry in Peachtree City. He has been in that role for 8 years, and before that was in student ministry and kids ministry. So he really has helped people serve from little kids all the way up to grandparent age. Welcome, Matt. We're glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, we are glad you're here. Like I said, it's fun to be at the table with Amy and Matt Lowe, you know? But yes, Matt, we're glad that you're here. Glad you're going to talk to us today about volunteering. But before we jump into that, we always like to start with a certain question, just in general. What is your favorite part about the current season of parenting that you are in right now?
Yes, so we are in the parent of two teenagers phase, which is a new phase to be in. But we just recently, in January, went on a family vacation. And vacationing with teenagers is nice. Yeah. You don't have to have a death grip on their hands. You know, it's actually a little bit more like a vacation than a trip. Yeah. You know, you do some stuff together, but then, Mom and Dad, can we go to the pool? Yes, you can go to the pool. Yes. You know, we don't have to do everything together. And so that was kind of fun. It made it like a little more relaxing. Yeah. Everyone was kind of able to do a little bit what they wanted to. And then we had the family time. Yeah. But yes, you know, when they're little, it's a trip.
Yes. It's not a vacation.
It's not a vacation.
Yeah.
So
Marissa has this to look forward to.
Yes,
I do.
That part of season's kind of nice.
Yeah. With around 2 and 18 months, your vacations are not vacations right now. So.
And it's hard to imagine that it will be that way.
Yes.
But even for us, it is weird because it still feels new to us, this like independence that they have, but it's fun.
It's fun. Yeah. Again, they'll be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and they know how to find their way back and those kind of things. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. Vacations with teenagers.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, we're talking about volunteering. I always like to start big picture. Let's look at this from like a 30,000 foot view. Why is it important just to volunteer, period? Why is it important to volunteer?
Well, I think we'd start with the fact that, you know, we see Jesus saying, you know, that he came to serve and not to be served. And so, you know, one, it's a commandment, an example we see from Jesus. But then the other thing is it's good for you. It's, you know, the whole better to give than to receive thing is true. You get a whole lot more out of it than you expect. You know, in my role, you know, overseeing volunteers on a daily basis. That's what I hear all the time, especially from new volunteers. They're like, I didn't know how much I needed this. Like, I can't wait to come back. Yeah. You know, I know I'm helping them, but it's helping me so much. You know, they talk about how they're in a better mood. You know, they have more excitement in their life. And so really, you know, it's good for your community, but it's also good for you as well.
Yeah. And I think like what you said, you know, they come in and they're like, I didn't know I needed this. But when we think about it, like the Lord created us to be like servant hearted and to serve and to volunteer. And so I think, of course, whenever we're like, it makes sense when we're stepping into a way that the Lord has called us to live, like we'll get to feel a benefit of that.
Exactly.
So that's cool to hear, you know, your volunteers come in and be like, yeah, I didn't know I needed this. Which leads us into our next question really well, where we know that there is actual science behind the joy we feel when we get to help others. And so how can moms point out those feel-good moments to their kids to help them build a lifelong internal motivation to want to serve?
Yes. You know, so I think, as we said, you know, volunteers, you know, they're always surprised at how good it makes them feel. Yeah. And when they feel good about it, they want to talk about it, and they want to tell their kids about it, and they're talking about it all the time. One of the neat things that I see happen a lot is we have a decent amount of like empty nester moms that volunteer. And over Christmas break, over spring break, they bring their kids with them, their college-age kids. Yeah. And their college-age kids are like, well, my mom talks about this all the time, so I had to come. I wanted to see, this is really, it's all she talks about. And she's always telling us stories. And I think that's they're setting a legacy. They're setting an example for their kids. Yeah. And their kids are saying that, hey, this is important to my parents. It'll also be important to me. And then, another thing that I hear a lot from volunteers is they just realize how grateful they are for what they do have.
Yeah.
Especially, in our context, it's a food pantry. So serving people, that are food insecure, living at or below the poverty line. And one thing that happens really almost on a weekly basis is we have local grocery stores that will donate food. And one of the things that they donate that a lot of people don't expect is the display cakes and the cupcakes.
Oh, fun.
And on a regular basis, a mom will come through and almost be in tears because it's her daughter's birthday. Wow. And she was expecting that, we just weren't going to have a birthday cake this year because we didn't have the money for it. And, and there's this brand new, beautiful cake. And many of the volunteers are just like, I take that for granted. Like, it's a birthday cake. Yeah. But, for that to have such an impact on people, that really helps you, realize that you are grateful for what you have, that you are able to buy a birthday cake for your kid. So it really kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah. I mean, that idea of like, it makes you feel good because you're serving, which is the way the Lord put us together. It also makes you feel good because it makes you grateful for the things. It feels like a double whammy of like goodness. No wonder they leave happier than when they came, because they were serving people and they were now leaving more grateful than when they came, and more just in awe of like all the blessings that the Lord has given them. And he does tell me stories all the time. It's so fun to hear the stories from the Real Life Center. But when you even think about it bigger, Matt, because you have the context of the Real Life Center and all of your years of working with kids and students. So you're going to be able to pull from all of these things. But with most families, we feel like we barely have time for laundry. And I know people listening are probably thinking, Amy, don't make me add something else to my schedule, because when am I going to do it, and how am I going to make it work? And now you're going to make me feel guilty. And hopefully you haven't already turned this podcast off and you're giving it a chance, because I think there's a way, hopefully, Matt, you'll tell us, to incorporate serving into our like regular rhythms. How can we do that?
Yeah. So I think first off, don't see it as an obligation. See it as something you get to do, have the opportunity to do. It's volunteering is similar to anything else that you want to add into your life, whether that being exercise or eating healthy or spending more time with your spouse or your children. There is time to do it, but it will take some effort to do it. But I think realize that it's good for you. Like, it's going to be beneficial for you. It's going to help other people, and it's so beneficial for your family to see you doing it. When they see mom and dad volunteering, it just shows that it's important to mom and dad. It shows that this is something that's important for us to do as a family. You're setting an example for your children. I saw this with both of my grandmas. They were always serving, and that's just what they did. It was just all the time, everywhere. And I just kind of saw that as that's just what was normal. And you're showing that for your kids too. And so I think that's a very important part of it. Is just to realize that, yes, you get a benefit. You're helping others, but also you're showing your kids that this is an important part of who we are as a family and what we do.
Yeah. One way, Marge, that we did this was actually with family camp. So we did a little service project when we were at family camp. And one of the things we did was pack little bags to put in people's cars. And it had like water and granola bars and hand sanitizer and things like that. And that way it was in your car, ready to go. Your kids helped pack it. And they were able to give it to to people on this side of the road that might need it. And again, that's not something you have to schedule necessarily. It's not something that you have to put into your calendar every week. It's just regularly we do this. So I think there's lots of ways that you can get creative with it.
And I guess one other thing that's important to say too is volunteering doesn't have to be awful. I think a lot of times you think, for it to count, it's got to be something I don't enjoy doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got to go clean toilets somewhere. I've got to change diapers. I've got to, but the reality is if you're serving somewhere that you enjoy, it won't feel like it'll just be something you want to do.
Yeah.
And, I've learned as overseeing volunteers that the number one lie is put me where you need me. I'll put you where I need you and then I'll never see you again because you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to think about what it is that you enjoy doing.
Right.
And a lot of times there may be something you enjoy doing that you haven't had the opportunity to do in a while. Do you enjoy working with kids? Do you enjoy organizing things? You can find a way and a place to volunteer. There's lots of places that need volunteers, and it may be through a specific organization, or it may be you kind of come up with a way that you can help those in need around you. But it's okay to think about what it is that you do like doing.
Yeah.
That will make it more fun.
Yeah, I think especially when we're thinking about inviting our kids into volunteering, like we are going to have to think about, okay, well, what are my kids going to be able to do and enjoy to like bring them into volunteering with me, So I love that you said that, and even once again leads us into our next question. Matt, just talk to us about how you think parents can start to do this from young kids to middle school kids to our high school kids. Like what might that look like when it comes to their age differences?
Yeah, absolutely. So with little kids, I think a big part of it's just the example, even just the fact that they know mom's not here on Tuesday night because she's volunteering, like that just sets the example. Or, I think there's a couple of families at our church where, they have multiple kids, they're working parents, but they're just volunteering all the time.
Yeah.
And that their kids just expect that, know that. That's just who we are. That's what we do. And so that's a big part of it, I think, when they're little. And then, there may be some neat opportunities like, packing little bags or, if you're volunteering with the children's ministry, maybe they can help you cut things out for, for the craft that this next day or something like that they
or
can
helping
do.
With, there's so many like pack a bag or pack a box things,
Yes.
so many of those things too.
Even when they're, and then, as they get to like elementary age, elementary age is kind of the food drive age or their schools will do that. One thing that I think is neat, in our area, there's several food drives that were started by elementary kids.
Oh, wow.
They do one in their neighborhood. They went door to door and just handed out flyers and then came back and picked up food. Or there was one little girl who just realized that where we served that we needed grocery bags. So she just put a bin at her community pool and said, people just brought their grocery bags to the community pool. That's a great way for an elementary kid, to get involved serving. Yeah. And then as they get older, middle school, they're able to start to understand it a little bit more. Usually a lot of places that they're old enough to serve. That's one thing to think about too, as you want your kids to be helpful where they're serving. Yeah. We're at the Real Life Center, we do have a minimum age, and that's because we don't want to give out expired food. There are certain places things have to go, and, we want everyone to be safe. So you have to think about that as you're thinking about, where they could serve. But in middle school, they're able to start understanding why they're doing it. Yeah. They understand service a little bit more. And so it's a great opportunity for them to be able to probably volunteer alongside you to do it together. I think that's really neat. We have a lot of, parents and their middle schoolers that serve together, both at the church and at the Real Life Center where I serve. And that's that's fun. That's as a parent, you get to do it together. And so that's a great thing. And then they get to high school, they really can start to make it their own. Yeah. Sometimes they do it initially because they need those beta club hours or they need those National Honor Society hours. But what I think is neat is how many of them then say, hey, can I stick on? I got my hours.
Yeah, they love it.
They love it. And you can start to give them some responsibility. Yeah. They can take on more of a project. I know at our church, the kindergarten and first grade, Sunday school classes. I mean, they're taught by high schoolers. There's not an adult in there.
Yeah.
They do
a
it.
great job.
They do a great job, and that's great. That's it. That's empowering them.
Yeah.
That's wanting them to serve. That's also instilling in them that it's important. And then, what you hope is then as they go off to college, they continue that.
Right.
They want to keep serving. They want that to be a part of who they are. They have that as part of that's their regular routine.
Yeah.
I'm going to find a place to serve, wherever I'm at.
Yeah. So. Our middle schooler, Claire, when she was in middle school, one of the things she did, and the only reason why I'm sharing this is because I think it might give you some ideas, but one of the things she did, Matt remembers, is that she wanted to help the dog and cat rescue.
Yes,
what's it called? The rescue
mission. The dog, whatever, the dog rescue place.
The dog rescue place. She wanted to help that. And because she knew that they were like running out of food and needed more food for the animals that were there, and we're not going to adopt another dog. So that was the way we could help. But she didn't have any money, but she loved to bake. And so what'd she do, Matt?
She made dog biscuits, or she baked dog biscuits. Yeah, she found a recipe online for baking dog biscuits and made them and
sold them. And then what?
Donated the money and the dog biscuits too, didn't she?
Well, I think she took the money and went to the pet store.
That's right.
And bought stuff for like food and things, and then delivered it to the place. So that was really fun. And then I think even now she's in high school, and again, it's very easy for our family to serve because of Matt, but she goes on Thursday nights to the Real Life Center and serves. And what does she do there?
She, so it's set up like a mini grocery store. So she's stocks the shelves, and she knows how to do it.
Yeah.
She knows, she's well trained, and she just gets there and
she gets to work
and starts,
Sometimes she says hi to you, and other times she doesn't.
Yeah, sometimes I don't even realize she's there. She's just back there, bagging lettuce and stocking shelves.
But she's our little introvert. And so and just introvert and just a little bit socially, social interaction is a little bit harder for her. But yet she just goes and serves and is happy to do it and knows what to do and talks to the people, and they love having her. And it's just a win-win all the way around.
She banters with the volunteers and gives them a hard time, and so.
I know, it's so good. And so it does help that she loves it, and it works out as a time that we can do it. So I'm just here to let you know that your kid, hopefully you can find something that they love. It just might take a little bit of intentionality, a little bit of work to get that place kind of discovered and started. But it is neat to see them make it their own as they get older. Yeah. Okay, Matt, there's something special about serving together, because we mostly just talked about individual places. So you did mention it a little bit, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about how does working side by side on a project change the dynamic between a parent and a child compared to just sitting across from each other at a dinner table?
So I think one, you both kind of gain a passion for it. It's not just something that mom or dad talks about all the time, but you'll find yourself coming up with ideas. I see that a lot. A mom or dad brings their child with them, and then the child starts asking me. Sometimes it's, hey, is there a place near me where I can do this? Or have y'all ever thought about this? Or hey, all of a sudden now we're having to buy extra peanut butter because he saw we were out of peanut butter when he was stocking the shelves last time. So it's like they buy into it.
Yeah.
And so that's really neat. And, sometimes, you have a project to do that day. And so it's rewarding to know that, hey, like there was this pile of stuff that was disorganized and a mess, and we did it together, and you can kind of take ownership in that, and it grows you closer together. You're making memories as a family, right? It'll be something they remember is serving with their parents at this place, and that's something we did together. I think like at our church on Sunday mornings, there's lots of parents and kids that serve together. And on the tech team, there's a dad and a son that, are in the tech booth working together, and I was like, that's a neat memory for them to have that time together to do that, and something that they both enjoy doing. So,
yeah. I serve with Jack a lot in the kids ministry at church, and it really is fun to see what he wants to do and how he wants to jump in, and the way that he's able to like take initiative and and get a lot of stuff done there and have fun with the kids. And it's just, I get to witness it because I'm right there next to them. So I totally agree with that. And I think it's so fun. It's just, again, there's so many wins to it, but that's another win, is that you get this special experience with your kids or with your family that you wouldn't have normally gotten.
And with that, we live in a digital age. And so volunteering gets you out with people, out in the world, and also makes you aware of the real world a little bit, it helps you, just not, it's different seeing it on a screen than in real life. Yeah. And so I think that's another big valuable aspect of it too.
Yeah. I think just like you said, like doing something together and doing this together automatically makes memories. Like it almost like lets you, as you said, like get to know your kids more in a way, like I feel like that puts you in a new environment where you get to learn about them. Like you said, what they're interested in. They get to be like, oh, I actually like enjoy stocking shelves, like you might have never learned that sitting at the dinner table talking to them. So I love what you're saying about it. Just does like create a moment to make a memory. And that might not be the first thing you think about when you think about volunteering, but I think our kids want to just do things with us and be with us, and that gives a space for that. So
one other story talking about Claire volunteering at the Real Life Center. Just last week she was there, and it was her and this other gentleman in the back, and I heard him go, "Oh, now Claire, what do you think we should do with this? Like, where should we put that?" And I was like, that made me happy that he asked her that, and she had an answer.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, yeah, I think that's a good," but that gives her some leadership, some buy-in, builds her confidence.
Yeah.
And so that's another neat opportunity that can happen too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, this has been a very encouraging podcast, and I hope for everyone listening that you kind of feel encouraged to go and be like, okay, what can we do? And I think as we've talked about, like there's a range of volunteer options. Like it doesn't mean you need to go and schedule something every single week right now. Like start small if you need to as a family, but there's so many benefits of getting to volunteer together. And so thanks so much, Matt, for sharing with us today about it. We know you get to see it day in and day out, but grateful that you shared just your knowledge and wisdom with us about volunteering. And so we've come to the end of our podcast today, but Matt, we end every podcast with a question.
Okay.
You do not need to answer the question. It's more for us to tell to our people listening, to kind of give them a way to start this conversation around their dinner table or in the carpool line or things like that. And so for everyone listening, our question of the day is, if your family could make someone's day better this week, what could you do? So if your family could make someone's day better this week, what could you do? So we hope you enjoy that question. We hope it spurs on really great conversation. And thanks so much for joining us today.